everybody, Jim from Jim's Wholiest of Coleus here. Hope everyone is doing well. Hope you had a great weekend. Daylight savings time has finally arrived, which is a good thing. It means we're getting closer to spring. We're in March now, and that's good news. My main goal now is to get my Coleus outside into the greenhouse, but not too soon. And I have to be more patient, and that's one of the things I've learned every year, to be more patient and learn from my mistakes. And I made a few this year, not really mistakes as much as using new items. This year I noticed a few of my germinations, a tray or two of my germinations have been growing very slowly. They're a little leggy on the yellow side, not as healthy as I'd hoped, and there's a reason for that. And I think to myself, well, what has changed this year that you know, what have I done this year that I haven't done in previous years? And one of the main things I've done, and I've done some more research on it, is to use these heating mats. I use heating mats this year for the first time. So, I try to expand my knowledge each year. I try to use more tools that may help me with my Coleus. But at the same token, I don't want to pass on bad information to you guys. So I did some more research on the heating mats and so forth. And the heating mats were causing some issues with my Coleus germinations. So let's go inside. Okay, so if you're following along, you know I've been saying this over and over. Your main thing with your Coleus, what they need is light. Once they're germinating and they're growing, it's very important to maintain the moisture and the light, either with a good bright bay window or a room that has glass all around. As much natural light coming through is the best for your Coleus. And if not, you can supplement them with grow lights, which I've done. But I still had some issues this year. So the problem I've been having, I just noticed this year that these, I've had quite a few that have grown really well. And these two trays that have they seem like they've stalled. It's like they've reached a certain point. Now there's a few here that I just seeded. I seeded these about a week ago. So that's okay, but there's a few here that just, particularly this tray. This tray has absolutely stalled. I'm just not impressed with the way these seedlings look. They just don't look healthy. And I'm wondering why. Was it the seeds? But these are the same seeds. So there's a reason. And that reason is the heating pads, the heating mats. Okay, so how do you, what do you ask? How does heating mats, how can heating mats actually cause problems with your germinations? Well, again, like I said, I try to do my homework, and I want to pass on bad information to you. It's not fair, obviously, but again, this is the first year I've actually used heating mats, and heating mats are good for, I use the Jiffy trays, but these are good for when you're first starting your seeds. When you have if you're using Jiffy trays or what have you, you have your seeds planted, and they're in trays, they're covered. You want to keep the soil moist and warm, and you want the seeds to be nice and warm so the seeds can germinate. And that's what these are for. The problem I've been having is after they germinated, I kept 2 of these trays on the heating mats. So I'm like, okay, so these two trays aren't doing too well, and these two trays have been on the heating mats. So there's a problem there. So what I've been doing also is, while they were in the greenhouse, I thought maybe they weren't getting enough moisture, so I put the dome back on. I didn't lock the dome down, but I left the dome, these domes here, I left the dome partially covered, and I would close up the greenhouse a little bit just to get it moist in there. But what I was doing is actually creating more problems than what I thought was actually helping, was actually hurting my Coleus. Okay, all right. So we learn from our mistakes. That's fine. I'm glad I did more research on it, and I'm sorry, but that's how you learn, by making mistakes. And these are amateur mistakes. I want to say amateur, but using new products and maybe using them the wrong way. So if you're using heat mats, remember, just use them for your trays for when you're first germinating your seeds. Once they're germinated and they're on their way, then you can do away with your heating mats. So so how do we fix this? How do we get this going again? Okay, so best thing to do, again, you want to eliminate the heating mats. We want to get the Coleus germinations out in the open air. We want to get as much light on them. Make sure that they're moist, but not too moist. We don't want them to cook. They were just too hot and too moist inside this greenhouse. And that was just making them reach, even with a grow light, they were reaching, because of the heat was just causing them to reach. It's like, get me out of here. And they were just reaching, and they were turning more of like a yellow, and they weren't, there's a few of them, they're pretty decent, but they were stalling. They just weren't growing. So how you alleviate that, again, is discontinue the use of your heat mats. Get your Coleus, whatever you're planting, tomatoes or any kind of plants, whatever you use. If you're having this problem, discontinue the use of the heating mats. Get your Coleus out, like I have them here on my trays, on my racks. Get them flooded with some natural light. And that will help. And also cool things off a little bit, because the temperatures from having that barrage of heat from the heat mats was just too much. So we eliminated the heat mats, get them out on the racks here. That's going to increase your light, and it's going to lower the temperature down, get some air moving in here. I have a little fan. I can put a little fan on, but I have a little window here. I can crack that a little bit just to get some air to cool things down a little bit. And I'm also going to give them a little bit of fertilizer. Okay, so this is the product, the Miracle Grow plant food that I use during the season. This is the water-soluble plant food that I actually mix. I'll use 2 of those into a 2-gallon water can. But what I'm going to do now, because I'm concerned with these, because they're stressed out and they're going to need a little bit of a jump start to get them back, is I'm going to take a little bit, just about the small end, and these come with these little scoopers, a little bit more than that, just a little bit more, and I have it, depending on what you're mixing in, I have a 1-liter sprayer, and I just mix it. You can almost see that little blue tint. I mix it up really well in a pitcher, make sure it's mixed really well, and then I put it into this mister. Okay, same here. Just a little bit. And when you water, if you're using these pods and they're out in the open like this, especially sun, just be careful because they can dry out fast, especially the ones on the end here. So just get to know what they feel like when they're well watered. They shouldn't be soaked, they shouldn't be saturated, but these little pods hold a lot of water. I have some peppers growing here. So you can see these little pods, they really soak in a lot of water. So again, don't drench them. But just be careful if you have them out in the open. Without the dome, they're not going to retain the moisture like they were when when you first planted your seeds. As for the other Coleus, they're doing fine. And again, these other trays, I only have the 2 heating mats. So I had them in my greenhouse, but I was only able to put a few of the mats of these trays on the heat mats. And it's funny because these 3 trays are the ones I'm having problem with. These other ones, which are doing great, look at the difference, are the ones that I did not use the heat mats. And look at the growth. And again, I did start these a little earlier, but they're growing. I noticed a difference almost every few days that they're just growing. They look healthy, they're growing. And again, these are just stalled. These seems like these have been at the same level of growth for the past like 2 weeks. They're just not growing. So there's definitely a problem. I'm glad we found it and we're going to correct it. Check back. I'll do another updated video in another 10 days or so, and we'll see how they're doing. Okay, so we'll check back. I'm going to continue doing that. So again, we're gonna discontinue the use of these heat mats. We'll put these away for next year, and we'll again we learn from our mistakes. So I'm glad I did a little more research on that because I did notice a problem with my Coleus, the way they're growing as compared to the years before. And again, it was a simple thing. I always ask myself, well, what did I do this year that I never did before? So, and that's this. Too much heat. I kept the dome on too long because I thought that the Coleus needed a little more warmth. I thought maybe they weren't warm enough. And what I was doing is overloading. I was doing the opposite. I was actually making them too warm, too uncomfortable by keeping them in the greenhouse, not giving them enough ventilation. And it was a recipe, and I'm glad I learned from it. I'm glad I noticed the difference, that I noticed that my germinations weren't doing as well as previous years, and I saved them before they died. So anyway, I hope you guys learned from this as well. Thanks for watching Jim's Wholiest of Coleus.